recorded? Yeah, now you know. Yes, it is recorded. It also will be on available. Like, so you'll get a link to it. And then if you're also following on YouTube, it will, if we don't plug it up, it'll be over there. So let's see what happens. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for showing up. And I look forward to kind of talking to you a little bit about what we do over here and what's happening with the training program so that you can decide if this is a path that you feel called to now or in the future, or if it answers some curiosities that maybe you hold around sexology, sex work, all this sexual shit that's just popping off everywhere right now. That's what we're going to do. So if you have questions, my encouragement is usually I'm in a different format where you can type the questions out and I can see them towards the end. But in Zoom, that's not a feature that we have just yet. I'm sure that one day they'll come up with it. But as for now, that's not there. So just write your questions down. And if you, there will be a moment where I pause for questions. And so you can just raise your hands and we'll try and move through it that way. If that works for everybody. I am Amina. I know I see a lot of familiar faces. So a lot of you already know who I am. For those of you who this is our first time meeting. Hey, boo. I'm the director and founder of the Atlanta Institute of Tantra and Divine Sexuality. I am also a sex worker. I am a many of things, but I'm a sex worker, and I am a teacher and a practitioner of Tantra. I am an expat. I don't live in the US anymore. I live in Costa Rica full time. My offices currently are still in Atlanta. That will likely change at the end of this year, but for now, I still do have a practice that is based in Atlanta. I have an office that's there. It doesn't see me enough for me to keep it open, so I think we're gonna close it. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I started in this work a little over 25 years ago. So I've been doing this for a while. I know for a lot of folks, there's a lot of newness around sex and sexology and sex work. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But I started as a sex surrogate, now known as a surrogate partner, working under Dr. Dean Dow in 1997. And so there's been a little time. All the good sex is making me not age rapidly, but but there's been a little bit of time that has passed in between when I've started. A whole lot of evolution, a little bit of time, whole lot of evolution in that time between 19-year-old Amina and 46-year-old Amina that's in front of you today. So, so there's a pathway to how I got here. And when I was coming up in this work, there were no guides, really. They were far and few between. And since I lived in the middle of America, I'm from Chicago, living in the middle of America didn't really give me an opportunity to connect with some of those guides, right? Some of the folks that are out in California that have been pioneers in this work, or up in Portland, Oregon, or in Seattle, Washington. We have some spaces where folks have been really pioneering in this work for a long time, in liberal country, in the more liberal parts of the world. And I grew up in Chicago, which is a blue city in a red state. And so the laws were not really very much in our favor for pioneering anything when it comes to sex and sexuality. And we're seeing a lot of that expansion across the country. We're seeing a lot of censorship around sex and sexuality, and I imagine that will continue. To me, that means this work is even more important than it's ever been before. Right now, we have books being banned and sex education being removed from schools in the name of religion and religiosity. That we have misinformation and just an abundance of hate, which gets in the way of facts and facts about our bodies, facts about how sexuality shows up, how gender shows up. And so, so this work right now to me is more important than it's ever been in my lifetime. And that's all I can really speak to, right? I started the Institute in 2017, and I started the Institute because I was asked to teach. it wasn't something that I had on my vision board. I wasn't going to be a teacher. I had been hosting workshops here and there, but not in any formal type of teaching environment. They were, fun events. I still do them. They are fun events that focus on our bodies, our practice, our eroticism, our joy, our pleasure. And in that, I was requested to teach, and that request came a few times at once. And so I started working on a curriculum, and that fast forwards us to where we are today. And so today the curriculum has evolved and is a beautiful opportunity for us to learn and practice and experience things that curriculum has seen some changes though over the years, right? And so every year or so I do one of these open houses to answer questions, because there's been a lot of evolution. When I first started teaching it, I was just teaching Tantra massage because that was what was asked. And I realized very quickly in that me trying to teach something that was the evolution of 25 years of work and study and training and wrap it up into one course was somewhat ridiculous. And so so I started there, and then I needed some more. So I was like, wait, well, there's not just this, we also do this, like this is also a part. So let me teach you this. And then that expanded into a little bit more. So I'll talk about what that expansion looks like and what it looks like for the future. Right now, as it stands, the Atlanta Institute of Tantra is the only nonprofit organization, spiritual-led organization that centers Black women in our pleasure. It is a training institute, and it is a community. So it is all of these things in once. Think Liberty University, but for freedom and orgasms, not televangelism. We have all the things that we want in one space, and we're building it collectively to create that vibe. And one of the reasons why I started the Institute was simply just the realization that every space I was showing up in was very white and was not equipped to even be able to consider Blackness and our reality of being in this country, which is very different than every other reality, right? You can be a Ted Cruz, right? You could be somebody from an ethnic background and pass as white in one or two generations, if that's what you desire. For pretty much everyone else, except for those of us from the diaspora, our experience is very different. And so when I would go to spaces that were in the sexuality world that were BIPOC, there were few of us. Then I would go to anything Tantra related. It was either going to be homophobic, and I'm queer, or it was going to be white. Those were my options. And so I realized we needed something different. We needed something that was going to offer us space to be who we are and the way that we show up in the world, to have information that served us fairly and beautifully, and that offered us some sense of wholeness, that presented us a real whole view of who we have the potential to be. And so that's where this was born from, in case you were curious as to how we got here. I had the joy of landing in Atlanta. I left Chicago in 2005 and moved to Atlanta. I was not moving to Atlanta. My plan was to move to Costa Rica then. I was coming to Atlanta to help my mother pack up, and that's a whole other story, but she ended up staying, and I ended up falling in love, and not just with the city, but also with my now husband. And so I stayed for a few years until the pandemic started. and then a return to Hawaii. But Atlanta gave me something very different, very unique. Hawaii has a 2% Black population. And so in my experience, and most of that is military, which can be very conservative leaning. And I say that as a veteran. So you take that up with your people, not mine. So I just knew that when I got to Atlanta that there was something different. And I could tell by the reception that there was a desire and a need for comprehensive pleasure-based sex education and for a spiritual connection to sexuality that did not or was not rooted in heteronormativity, was not rooted in or was not supported solely by Black women's labor. That those things had to, there was a need for that. And so we built what we have today. Today, I have trained over 100 practitioners in bodywork. So our level 1 is a bodywork training course, and it is sexological bodywork, essentially. It's conscious erotic touch is level 1. I have trained doctors, I have trained nurses, I have trained mental health therapists, folks who cannot touch as a part of their work without risking licensure, right? So I say that to say that this work is, even though you are learning body work, or you may think that, well, I'm not going to practice that, it's still the fundamental kind of baseline of the work, is to understand the body. This is, we talk about somatic sexology, we're looking at the soma, we're looking at the body. And we often in the West have talked about a body-mind connection. Somatics really teaches us that the body, there is no body-mind, it is one. The mind actually lives in the body. The mind is the body. We are thinking brain when we say mind, but the information, the processing is happening in the body. We're holding, we're remembering in the body. And so body work has to be at the start of this training that I've developed. In that we cover topics around consent, we cover topics around anatomy and physiology, but also the anatomy of the body's response to the nervous system, the body's nervous system response, not just anatomy and physiology in the way that we may have studied in college and in Bio 101. It's a little bit more expanded than that. We also look at other historical views of anatomy, other understandings of the body beyond just the Western framework. We learn to touch. We touch each other in the class. It is touch focused. And so there is a requirement for practice, although you can dictate how much or how little you want that to be. There is a requirement for touch to be able to facilitate touch, to be able to offer touch at some level. I've had couples join. So that they could touch each other instead of having to touch other people, or friends join. However, in our classes, we really open up to each other and in a way that is, to me, the most truest form of intimacy. And as we do that, we get to know a lot about each other. We get to feel safe with each other. We get to explore what safety means in community, which usually creates a real loving space for touch to be exchanged. Once you finish the level 1 course, then you move to level 2, and level 2 is the sex doula training, which is essentially a somatic sex educator. It is a training program that is designed to, as the word doula suggests, guide a lover to. So we get the lover to, through, and on the other side, beyond the sexual experience. And so there's education there, there's preparation. There's a lot of embodiment work in that. There's a lot of erotic embodiment, which is, really borrowing from some of the pioneers of somatic theory, the folks who a lot of, somatic therapists and somatic coaches are training or learning from. We take some of that. We take from historical other practices, those that come from ancestral traditions of South and Central America and Africa, and India. So we look at other practices that we can include in understanding the body. And we teach, we learn together in that so that we can share that with our client, how to get towards their sexual desires, how to understand what their sexual desires are, how to kind of take off some of the whisperings of the world and be able to really hear their own body and their own desires and to acknowledge that. So that's a part of it. And then there's level 3, which is the somatic sex coach. The somatic sex coach training is really teaching you to do a bit more life coaching with your client. As we are in small things, we are in all things. And so a life coach is a sex coach. A sex coach is a life coach. We don't use the term life coach, but essentially you are coaching on a variety of issues and you're learning about like how to show up as a coach, and really to have a really clear line between what that looks like and what traditional Western talk therapy looks like, because they're two very distinct models. And so understanding that and being able to move in your work based on that, right? To be able to offer something to your clients based on that. There's also consent training. And there's erotic embodiment training, things that you can add on. We have advanced training with other practitioners, other groups that I think that are amazing that I have come and teach for our community, so that we can have spaces where we can feel safe and where our voices can be heard, where our realities can be centered. So some of those programs that you've seen out in the world, we try to bring them so that we can have them in community as well, as opposed to going out and navigating all of the unnecessary rigmarole, to quote Busta Rhymes, that we have to deal with in these mixed spaces, really. And we do that enough. We do that every day. We do it all the time. So it's not like I'm trying to bypass and get us away from it. I'm trying to give us an opportunity to actually experience embodiment without making ourselves small, without taking bits away from ourselves. That's important. And so we create these spaces that center us so that we can have that as our reality, as opposed to the reality that we live and deal with every day. So yeah. I'll talk a little bit more about levels 1, 2, and 3 towards the end, but I just wanted to give you that kind of, general view of like who I am and why I'm here, and probably why you're here, to learn a little bit more about that programming. So ideally, my goal is that I get more folks to complete all 3 levels. When you complete all 3 levels, you get the designation of somatic sexologist, certified somatic sexologist. And I want to talk a little bit about certifications, because let's face it, they're all a bunch of bullshit. That's the reality. The reality is much of this work is ancestral and has never required a certification. There is no governing body in the US or abroad that governs this work. A certification is nothing more than a piece of paper if that's all you let it be. I say this as somebody who's on this call to sell you a certification and to acknowledge that you don't need to be certified to do any of this work. However, I will also add that when I go to look for someone to do this type of work for me, I'm looking to see where they have trained, who they are connected with, who holds them accountable. What type of community are they in, right? And so if nothing else, the certification process here at the Institute offers a bit of vetting in that it lets you know that they are connected to someone, me, and that I ain't scared to check a motherfucker. And so that we have some clarity around some of the misuses and abuses, especially in this work. There's a lot of abuse that happens in this work. There are a lot of people that are coming in that don't have certificates. And again, I must say certificates are bullshit, but also we got some people that's on some bullshit. And the certificate is not a magical shield that protects you from the bullshit. It just also gives you a space where you can go and look and say, hey, is this person real? Is this person valid? Did they actually study? Do you recommend them? Are they in practice? Are they in community? Do they answer to you? Do they answer to anybody? Are they just out here winging it? That's important. That's an important layer of protection that I believe we all deserve, and that we're working to make sure exists over here in my neck of the woods. We are continuing to work on training. We are expanding on the training that's available. We continue to work on additional practices. We are in community together. Our WhatsApp chats be lit, but we're always sharing information and checking in, those of us that are in community. And so there is some protection and some acknowledgement in that. Certificate also says that I've trained, that at least at the very minimum, I've covered these subjects. I think that's really important. And let me just, as a personal example, tell you why. When I moved from Chicago to Hawaii, I was already offering sensual massage. I had completed my massage training, a 500-hour massage school program in Chicago. And very quickly after graduation, started moving into sensual and erotic massage. Pay was better. I'm a quick mathematician, so that was an easy no-brainer for me. And when I got to Hawaii, there was Tantra massage listed on all the sex worker sites. So Craigslist, Backpage, Eros, all the websites that we could promote ourselves on. There were all these Tantra massage therapists. And I thought, oh, I gotta learn me some Tantra because they're charging way more than I'm charging. Because that was the word at the time. That was the 2005, 2006, 2007, Tantra. And so I was really like, let me figure this shit out. And what was funny is that the people who were saying they were offering Tantra massage weren't really doing anything very much different than what I was doing. I did not know that though. So I just started studying Tantra. I went and got a bunch of books, started looking for workshops, classes. I wanted to learn Tantra because I thought that's what I had to do. I came from, military and college. And so you want to practice something, you got to learn it. You just can't just open up a shop and say you're a massage therapist, go to massage school. You can't just say you're a Tantra, go study some Tantra. And so that's what I had done. And I very quickly, as I got to learn and meet other sex workers in my community, that realized that that's not what was happening, that there was actually no talk about Tantra at all, or no real practice. It was just a neo-Tantra, sexuality, sensuality, and massage, which is, I love one of the massages. They are delicious. If you ain't never had one, go get you one. It'd be wonderful to have somebody just rub on you and you don't have to do anything except for pay them. Oh my God, it's one of the greatest joys of this earth. And I can recognize that at that, what that looks like now, right, is that when we have buzzwords, like, oh, that's exactly what happens. I'm going to add somatics to my practice, or I'm going to add embodiment to my work, to my title, or to my work, to my packages, to my programs, without any understanding of what somatics or embodiment is. And so, to quote Whoopi Goldberg, Molly, girl, you in danger. And when that happens, we don't really have a space where we can, we don't have authenticity in the work, integrity in the work, and we risk harm. Somatics is a wide range. The word somatic is a descriptor. It's not a title or a category. And so it can be very misleading. And so we're working every day to create a space where you don't have to feel misled. And that's what we're doing here at the Institute. That's what we're creating. It's a space where somatics and sexology, sexuality, pleasure, kink, queerness, transness, gender, disruption, all of that can exist, and we can learn about what our bodies are telling us about how we want to be, how we want to feel, what we are feeling, what that means, what it reminds us of, all of those things, so that we can have more access to our pleasure and our joy. So that's the institute, that's the training. The training takes about a year if you move through it at a really good absorptive rate. You could fly through it and get it done in 6 to 8 months. But embodiment is such a practice. It requires you to be really present for yourself and present for what you're reading. Oftentimes I'll read a book but I'll read like a page and then I just have to set the book on my chest and let that settle in and absorb it and like really come to terms with what I just experienced. That type of processing doesn't happen overnight. That's a slower process. And so the way that the training works is you move through a lot of the work on your own. On your own that's one way to put it. You move through a lot of the work at home. We have meetups, we have peer-to-peer groups. I have a class once a month for each level. You have peer-to-peer groups for you to study together twice a month. And then there's the WhatsApp chat for each group so that you're always working together, but you're moving through the material on your own. When you've completed the material, or when you're really close to completing the material, then you come and join me for a 4-day retreat in which we put all the things you've learned into practice. And retreat is a bit of a misnomer. Intensive is really the word we're looking for. But because we're in this beautiful location, it feels like you're going on a retreat. All your friends think you're going on a retreat, but you're really going to get your heart busted wide open and fall in love with yourself in a very intense practice. So that happens for as you move through, you finish level 1, you do the same thing, you go to your retreat. And that level 2, same thing. So it allows you to have some time. You have up to 1 year from the day that you start the course to complete the course. So if you buy a package, for instance, I have a promotion that I do for the package. If you buy them all at once, then you can slowly move through. The second, like level 2 won't start until you actually get to it. So you wait till you finish level 1. Then once you start level 2, you still have a year from that start date. So that gives you some time. And I really believe that time is the thing that we're missing the most from or that we're robbing ourselves the most of. So I encourage that slowness. Once you complete the program, the world is your oyster. And so I say this because I have folks that have completed the program that are not, I don't know if they're ever going to work in this field. But I know that what they learned over the course of their time with me has impacted their life in such a way that their relationships are stronger. Their friendships, not just romantic relationships, friendships, familial relationships, the ability to communicate has shifted, right? The understanding of the body has shifted. So folks are feeling things very deeply, which changes the way you show up professionally, changes the way you show up in the world. It changes how much rest you allow yourself to have. It changes all these things about you. And so even if you get all this education that you probably should have got in high school and elementary school, I really feel like these are the basics that we should have got, but we're just so scared of our bodies that we won't do it. But once you get that, you may decide that that's enough, that maybe your ancestors led you to this path for something different. There is no one way. There are a lot of folks, and I have folks here in the room today that have completed the program that may join in the question answers. But there are folks that are doing the work, that are starting their practice. There are folks that already had a practice that they're using this to expand their practice. Sex workers who have joined that already had an erotic massage practice and are using this to take their sex work practices to the next level. Kinksters that are using this to incorporate it into events that they're having in the kink community. Poly folks who are using this to expand the way in which their relationships look in their poly dynamics. Physicians or nurses or therapists who are using this work so they can better explain and better understand the context of their clients' struggles. And so there's all kind of ways that this work can show up. You get to decide what that is for you. This is to inform you, not to necessarily create your passion. Your passion lives in you already. This is just to help inform that passion. So yeah, there's that. And there's a shortage. There's a shortage of folks that are willing to do the work. And it's work, right? If you decide that this is a path that, no, this is what I want to do, it's work, right? Like you still have, it's a business. I wish bodies just flew from the sky for me, but that's not what it is. I have to spend time on social media and marketing, and I teach that. I have to spend time connecting with humans. It's hard to get clients if you're a hermit. I will tell you that it's not the easiest thing. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it's going to be real hard, though, if you're like, oh, I really don't want to talk to people, but I want people to trust me to put my hands on them erotically. Like that's just not typically how that works. And so I do spend some time coaching development around professional development as well. But it is work. It is like I'm trying to run a business. I have clients. I have boundaries. I have days that I work. And there's flow. And as you start to create that, you start to receive more of that because you start to be in the flow, right? So that's important to know. That was one of the things. The process to get started. So I'm sure that's going to come up in the questions. Typically, I used to have a thing where I required you to move through the Tantra 101. Now, which was a separate class that you had to buy. So for all of you that are here that want to do that, you can have the Tantra 101 for free. It's already in your, if you're a member, it's already in your membership. You just haven't done it. I see a lot of y'all haven't done it. But if you're a member, it's already, if you're a founder member or above, it's already in your program. But if not, I'll just, if you want that, I'll send it out. The reality is that that's very helpful in learning before you get to, it will help you kind of speed up a little bit in your learning, right? Because basically what happens for a lot of folks, not for everybody. And I used to meet with folks before to see where they were. Like if you're a yoga instructor, you probably don't need one and three, or maybe you don't need 5. Now you go ahead and you look and you see what you need and you take what you need and you keep what you need and you don't keep what you don't need. But the reality is if you dive right into this work without any understanding of concepts around Tantra, around embodiment, around movement, around breath, then it can be overwhelming. And I just try not to overwhelm the spirit. That's not the world I'm in. I'm trying to keep the spirit all nice and make it feel real good. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to get it all stressed out. And I don't want you to be doing that either. So that's available for you. Once you've done that and you're ready to start, you really just start because the class is online. And so you'll move through each module on your own time. You'll turn in some homework. There are some homework requirements. And once you've completed that, then you pick your date when you're going to come out here and study with me in person for the 4-day retreat. And all of that is on the website. All of that is on atltantra.org/sexology. So you'll see all of that there. Okay, so I'm going to go through level 1, 2, and 3, but I just want to pause before I go into that a little more extensively and just see how this is landing. If you have any questions, I'll go down here and look at the chat and see if I missed any juicy things. Cool. All right. Okay. There we go. Definitely an intensive. Yes. How do you become a member? atltantra.org. You can become a member right there on the website. Yeah. Also, if you become a student, yeah, thanks, Sex. If you become a student, it's included while you're a student. So if you're becoming a student, you'll get the membership while you're in your studentship. So if you're thinking about being a student, you just register. There's no need to pay the extra money every month. You just sign up as a student and the membership is there for the year that you have the program. Yes, thank you for throwing those links in the chat. Appreciate y'all. The other question that someone asked was, There are no true certifications. What are your thoughts on ASEC certification? Well, I have a lot of thoughts on ASEC, but I have a lot of friends over there now that are changing some shit. If you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you that I think ASEC is a trash organization and should be dissolved. Someone should go in with a dynamite vest and blow the shit all the way up from the bottom and start all over again. That would have been my old answer. But now we have some folks that I know and love that are there, so I don't want it to get blown up, and that they're impacting some change that needed to be. ASEC reminds me of the Mormons a lot, and in the way that and I said like in the way that the Mormons like mysteriously said that Black people were real and not cursed one day, and that we were all supposed to go to their church. That's how I feel about ASEC, where it's like all of a sudden felt very monetary, that like, oh, well, we now recognize asexuality, and we now recognize sex work as a possible healing modality. So for me, as a bona fide sex worker, that just has never really gelled with me. That's just me personally. ASEC is also, whether they admit it or not, a lobbying organization. There's a reason why they held their conference in Florida. Florida is the only state currently that requires you, I believe, I haven't checked the laws lately because I done left y'all country, so I don't know what has happened in the last few years, but they were the only state that required training and ASEC certification to be a sex therapist. So you went to school and did all your therapy training, and then you had to go to ASEC to get the sex therapy designation. That's not required in the rest of the states, but Florida has made that a requirement. Florida has also a lot of other weird requirements, like you cannot do any body work unless you are a massage therapist. This includes Reiki. So if you are attuned to Reiki, that you cannot offer that to anyone unless you also have a massage therapy license. The Massage Therapy Board loves places like Georgia and Florida because these boards are designed to lobby the government to pass laws that sustain their existence, essentially. I've been in this work long enough to know that none of this shit was necessary. There did need to be some regulation, but that's not what's happening. There did need to be some governance, but that's not necessarily what's happening. And so instead it's more gatekeeping. And that is shifting, that is changing. And so we're in this deep space of change. It can go either way. We'll see what happens. As of right now, unless you live in Florida, ASEC may not really serve you. But I was around when I went to massage therapy school in 2003, there were only 13 states that required a massage therapy license. Now there are 50. So if ASEC has its way, it will probably be like the Board of Massage, which will slowly eat its way across the country, regulating any type of sex work or sex education, requiring that folks be trained and certified through an organization. We do have a training certification body that is the American Association of Somatic Sexology, which I am also the sitting interim executive director of, that is not in opposition. I won't say in opposition. I won't say it, but that stands as a, if there is a thing in nonprofit organizations, a competitor to ASEC, that this is another opportunity for you to actually receive training and certification, and that it can be presented over the course of the next few years. Right now, like for example, in the US, we have one certifying board for massage therapy. I think just A, B, and P. I think they combined, it was 2. And that's what happened, right? And so we're looking at that. We had other certification. We had ACS, the American College of Sexology, which just disappeared one day out the blue after 15, 20 years of being in existence. And that's the thing that happens because there is no true government regulation. And I'm not looking for that, but because there isn't, the organizations don't have to really have a front facing, no one knew who was behind the ACS unless you were privy to their conversations. Similarly, that's one of the reasons why we have American Association of Somatic Sexology. One of the things that also I will say that with a lot of the programs, and not ASEC specifically, but with a lot of other programs that are certifying or accrediting organizations, that they do not have a rubric that can be shared publicly to show you what their accreditation requirements are. I've asked every last one of them, and I have gotten silence, dust, all of that from each side before I got to this point. So this is also, I am a sexual revolutionary. This is a part of my makeup and my being. I come from a line of revolutionaries, and I'm an Aquarius, so we gonna fight. And so this is a part of that. Like, we need organizations that are inclusive of sex work, and that can offer a rubric so that you can understand what kind of training is expected from the folks that are saying that they have, that they're offering what they're offering, so that you can decide. And that's really what it boils down to. I'm all about choice. I believe that you should be able to decide, once you look at it clearly, if this is what you want, or if it's not what you want, or if you can do with less or more. That's a personal choice, not a government choice. And so organizations that are fighting for that to be their choice, to me, are at opposition with my liberty and my autonomy. And that does not work for an Aquarius. So I do think that, like, if you are a therapist and you are a sex therapist, your focus is on sexuality, then ASEC may be really, really required for you in the future, and that's something that cannot be ignored. A sex educator, I think we can fight that one, and I'm not sure if that one's gonna end up where we think it will be. I think that will take too long. I taught sex ed in the high schools in Hawaii for years, and I just don't see that type of transition happening. Body work is already extremely restricted in the US as far as what is allowed and allowable in body work. And so that's something to understand as well. I do all my body work under the umbrella of ministry. I am an ordained minister. I have a Christian-based church. I was not raised Christian. However, there are a lot of protections that are offered in Christianity and under the in this government. And so I have looked at enough scriptures that I believe support the work that I'm doing. And so I practice my work as the laying on of hands, and it's 100% under the domain of my church. I encourage people to move similarly, and I support you in that movement and in any ways that I can. Education, pointing you in the right direction, things of that nature. There are already protections in place for this healing to take place. It doesn't have to come under licensure, although it can. And if that feels good for you, then don't let me get in the way of it, because ultimately you are going to be the most successful version of you only when you're doing what feels good for you. And that is embodiment. So, this is done lit up down here. Let's see what the other question. Oh, just a lot of amens. Okay, good. I'm with it. Okay, yeah. So you live in yep, cool. All right, I done caught up. And then Nick's here, who's the chairperson of the ethics committee. And I know y'all doing stuff, and I know y'all ain't safe yet, but thank you. Thank you for being here and for being in the program as well. I saw that you registered, so I'm super excited to have you. What if we're not able to come to Costa Rica during the time frame allotted for the program? You don't have to come to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a certification training. You could just move through the education part. You don't have to come to Costa Rica. If you want the certification, then you have to make your way here. I'm at the point that hopefully by this time next year, we'll see that I have enough trained educators to move you through level 1 and level 2 in the US. I'm just not returning to the US to teach anymore. That's a dead one for me. I'll do little one-day workshops and things like that, but being in the US to navigate traveling with all the equipment that's necessary for the classes, it's not feasible for me. And this space is so dope. So it's like, come here. So yeah, if you're not able to come in the time frame, you complete the programming, and then when the time frame looks good for you, you can come and get your certification if you've completed the work of the course. But you can move through the courses without having to move through the certification. It's not the same, but you can do that. So yeah, thank you for that question. What other questions do we have? And you can just unmute yourself. I think it allows you to unmute. If it doesn't, somebody say something in the chat. But I think you can just unmute yourself if you have a question, or you raise your hand, and I guess I'll see you and I can ask you to unmute. So if there are any questions so far, if not, we'll continue and talk about 1, 2, and 3. There we go.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Hi, Nicole.
Hi. So I'm really excited about this work because this is something that I have been doing for a very long time without knowing that it had titles and things like that. So um, I'm really interested in learning and picking up what you have to offer. In order to speak with you, do we have to set an appointment with I think it was $250 for.
Yeah, that's for a consult. You don't have to do that to register for school. If you do, it'll be credited to your class. Like if you just want to get on the calendar and have a session with me, then that can be credited towards your enrollment once you enroll.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can also just book a discovery call, which is on the page as well. And if you register for the course, you actually get a call with me, an
Okay.
orientation that you just book, and that gives you an hour with me for us to go through whatever you need to go through. And so that's the best way, if I have to say it, there's a best way. Because then you've already gotten into the class, and so you may have some better formulated questions.
Okay.
But if you're still like not sure, you just got questions you want to chat, then that's different. But once you get in the class, you get a few different links, but one of the links is to book your orientation. And that's me gonna walk you through. We use an online platform, Kajabi, which some of you may be familiar with from other programs. Or if you're a member, you're familiar with, because it's the membership is held there as well. And so you would move through that. You book your orientation. We kind of go through, here's where you find your stuff, here's the books you need, here's where you get them online, but then you've already looked, and so you may have some questions that are related to like turning in homework or whatever the case may be. You'll have access to that there. And so that's the best way, the best pathway to me. It's my best way. It doesn't have to be your best way. Thank you. That's a great question. I'm sure other folks are asking that. The 250 session is for folks that are typically getting ready to start their coaching with me. So they usually book that and then get on their way for coaching. Although I've had folks that have booked it for pre-starting their education path here. And then again, I just give you a code, and it gives you that discount back on your tuition.
Okay. So level 1 is the Tantra Touch class. No, the Tantra class is free now.
So the Tantra 101s are free, and it's just going to kind of walk you through introductions. I mean, I'm going to give it to you for free. It's still listed for sale, but since you're here, I'm going to give it to you. It's listed, and so that moves you through just the basics of like, what are the chakras, and what is embodiment? What does breath work do? Like, what are I teach a day-long breath work class, but these are like 15, 20-minute little modules that you'll move through. You can move through them all in a day, in a day, really. But you may want to break it up. And that's just to kind of get you to a space where when I mention something in the text, you're not like running to Google trying to figure out like, what she mean by the sacral chakra? I don't understand, because you've already kind of introduced yourself through through the 101s on the basics of the body.
Okay, I'm really excited. Thank you very much. I'm going to, after we get off the call, look at the links and everything, and then go through them again, and then start seeing which classes. I want to take all the classes, basically. I want to take all of them. Financially, I don't know if I can handle that, but where there's a will, there's a way. The universe makes way for the things that you want to do. So
The
start
universe,
putting it out there.
universe does make way. We are the universe. We are stardust.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are making the way. We are the flow of nature. We are the way. And so yeah, there are payment plans. You can do weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or pay all at once. All of those are options for you. I do have scholarships, partial scholarships available. And if you need, if there's financial need, you can write me and I will talk to you about what that looks like. So just send me an email. There's not that many of them, but I always allot a certain number of scholarships for a variety of people. So sometimes I may be focusing on Black men. Sometimes I may be focusing on trans and non-binary folks. It just depends on really where the need is at the student level. Because my ultimate goal is that this work is not just showing up, but it's showing up in the ways that we show up, which, as a cis woman, I have more access to things than my trans sister may have, or I have more access to this work than a Black man who has to care for a family may have. And so, but I also have no children. Like I'm living the dream, you know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't living this dream. Some people, like, they got 5 or 6 kids, or one, shit, that motherfucker's expensive. So you could have, like, your financial situation.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So reach out to me if there, if financial need is where you're at and you're like, I'm looking at this program or I'm thinking about this program, but I don't know how I'm going to make it work. And we can talk about what that looks like as well.
All right, Ronnie, go ahead.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. Hi, Amina.
Hi.
I am a new student. Woo-hoo. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the journey. Just was wondering, how realistic would it be I'm starting classes today, to make it to the September 14th through 17th training?
Well, that level of realism is going to depend on you, right? So I say that if you give this work about 5 hours a week, you should be able to get through it in 20 weeks.
Okay.
If you want to give it more than that, you can do that, but that's what it would take. So you would be more in line with the January cohort if you were just moving at a slower pace. Actually, September sold out anyway, so you can't even come to that one.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can go ahead and release that. You come see me in January.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
September is full. Everybody for level 1 in September is already sold out. But don't you worry about it. We still got space for you. And let me just plug myself in. Hold on one second, y'all. Got that red light popping over here. There we go. So you'll join me in January for level 1. If that, you'll be on par for that. If you finish level 1, like you moving through and you finish, you can start level 2. And then you'll just come to level 1 training as you're doing, like maybe you start level 2 in December because you've already finished. That's fine. And then you'll come to level 2 when you complete that. But that's the ideal thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Thank you. And welcome to class. So we have also a lot of other students that or graduates and students, both, that are in the room as well. And so if there's a question that you have that you think would be great for one of our students, there's Jax. Let's see who else has completed. Jax has completed all 3 levels. Jazz is in here. She's completed all 3 levels. Mackenzie's completed level 1 and 2. Go ahead, look, Courtney. Come on off your mic.
Hey, so great to speak with you. I've been following you for like the past 3 years. And when I saw this pop up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just the perfect timing for me. So my question was in regards to the scholarship, how would you go about applying for that?
You would just send me an email and you could
Just in okay.
send me an email and let me know like what your situation is. Again, there's always more need than there's availability, but that doesn't mean
Of
that,
course.
yeah, that doesn't mean that you won't get in this time, or when the next scholarship opens up, I'll let you know. So just send me an email, just, kind of introducing yourself. There's not a formal application process. I'm not making us jump through any more hoops to get what we need in life. It's just a matter of you saying I need, and then
Mhm.
me seeing if I can support that need and in what way that looks like, and whatever way that looks like. Sometimes it's, it's a scholarship that's not that much, that still may be helpful with payment plans. Sometimes it may be a larger scholarship. It just depends on where we're at in the class.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, send the email. Email goes to amina@atltantra.org. If somebody could throw that in the chat so people can see that. And not the info, not the other boxes. Those get manned on occasion, manned on occasion. But go ahead and throw it into Amina if you're applying for a scholarship or requesting a scholarship. Deidre, hello, my love.
Hi, Amina. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So my question is about membership and training. Like if I get into the class, does that come with the membership, or the membership I would still have to pay for on top of the class?
No, your membership, as long as you are a student membership, you are a member, as you're just a student member. So you don't have to do anything extra. In fact, if you already have a membership and you become a student, cancel your membership. So you're not getting, unless you just want to donate, then donate like that. Don't let me, we are a nonprofit. But you don't, if you, you don't have to, so you can just cancel your membership while you're a student, because you'll have access to everything that I do as a student.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Trenda asked a beautiful question in the chat. For students, what is one recommendation you'd make to folks just getting started? And Bishop has responded in the chat. And I don't know if anybody else wants to respond to that. You can come off your mic if you are a graduate of at least level 1. And you want to answer Trenda's question or offer Trenda something, just come off of mute.
Hey, Amina, it's Tanya. I think my advice to new students would be to take your time, because you can only help heal others as much as you've healed yourself. And you're going to find more healing in this program than you could possibly imagine.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and that is something that's important that I really didn't mention much in this, is that like, it sounds all like fun and joy, and it's a lot of fun and joy. It's a lot of pleasure. And there's also a lot of like self-actualization and realization that's happening here. And so sometimes you want to fly through the shit, and sometimes you just can't, because you'll get stuck because there's something that you have to spend some time with. This is work that has been self-work for me over the course of my adult life. And I've gotten mad at it. And I've gotten really happy and excited by it. And you will move through those same realities of like pushing it all off the table and then coming back to it. Like, that's a part of the work. And it's also a part of our growth. It's just another space where we find our edges. And so, yeah, thank you for that, Tanya. Anybody else want to share something with Trenda and the rest
Hey,
of the—
Trenda, it's Mackenzie. I would say very practical advice would just be to set a weekly schedule that includes your studies and practice, so that they don't become, things that you meant to get to. And by the time you look up, you have squandered all this time. I'm speaking from experience. I've repeated the classes. So yeah, I would definitely recommend setting a schedule every week and then following that religiously like you would for your job.
Yeah.
And
Mackenzie, that was good. That was good talk. Go ahead, Bishop.
yeah, I would just add to also, it's been very helpful to have a therapist and a journal together with this process, because as Jack had already alluded to, I'm not the same person I was when I started, and this has been a major part of just digging into some places that needed to be transformed. I think, as Tanya said, before you do the work with somebody else, and then making sure, one thing that Amina said to me that I'll never forget is she said, sometimes you got to be the weird friend. And I've been the weird friend asking friends, can I practice with you? Can we talk through some things? And that has been liberating and changing relationships.
Yeah, that's also important. I think it's also like this work helps you kind of re-examine a little bit what friendships look like and mean. Who may be in your circle that you consider a friend, but that you don't actually have any type of intimate connection with, not sexual, but intimate. Where I've had students that have come to me and been like, I have no one I can practice with. But their Instagram story may tell a different tale, right? They may have all these friends that they share and travel with and do all these things with, but when it comes time to have a really in-depth conversation or to practice something as simple as touch, and we're not always doing genital touch. In fact, most of the time we're not doing genital touch. It could be something as simple as hand touch or arm touch, but still, like, we just have these spaces where we may be showing up in, and we start actually re-examining like how much of us gets to show up in that space, and how much of them that they allow to show up in that space, which reframes how we see our relationships in many ways. And so that's something to consider and to just to be aware of. It's just information, just a thing to be aware of. Luckily, we have a large enough community of people who are willing to play and practice with each other, so that is helpful. Let's see. Okay, I see a couple more questions coming in. I'm going to come back to yours, Whitney. I see yours. Ronnie asked, upon completion of level 3 certification, is establishing a 501c3 part of the business training? It is not part of the business training, although I will give you information on how to hire, who to hire to do that. It is definitely I pay an attorney to do it. This is no different than starting. This is not, I started my first business that I started was a coffee shop in Chicago in 2002. I started a business and it was expensive. This is the reality of starting a business in the US, is that it can be expensive. If you want to start a business, you know, like going through the whole thing, it can be pricey. You have to pay for an agent to file your paperwork. You want to research and see which states are the best state to organize your LLC in, or your S Corp, or whatever you're going to configure that. So we talk about that, but I don't teach you how to do that. I put you in contact with the people who can help you do that. And I realized, like, for me, I worked full time the whole time I was doing this, right? So I always had income coming in from a muggle job or a real job. And it was never as much as I was making in my sex work. I just felt like I had to have that. It was something I had to work through with therapy. And so, but it did help me. It helped me be able to establish myself. It helped me to be able to get all of the things that I needed to get done to be able to have a business, so that I had a storefront, like I had an office. Pretty much almost the whole time that I've been in this work, I've had some form of an office. That's rent, that's real estate, that's money, right? So there are things to think about like that, like who's, how are you resourced? Who's going to support you in this? Can you take a few months off of work and just focus on this? Can you run that risk? Do you have that kind of support? So those are the kind of things that we teach and talk about. And then we put you in contact with the people that will help do that. Bishop, I think that it's in the chat, in the main chat. But if you don't see it, let me know, because I know some people have already used it because it's my affiliate link. The other question, the impulse to quit all the other work to dive in all the way keeps showing up. Yeah, no, I get it. And I also struggled with that. Like, will I survive for a very long time? And so, yeah, so those both can be very alive in the body. Like, I want to quit it all and just do this, and who gonna feed me? Those can both be very alive here. And it's important to acknowledge both of them and to listen in. All of that is really important. So, how can other retreats supplement level 1 training? I'm particularly interested in the Pleasure Quest retreats and a retreat in September. All of my work is one big clusterfuck of joy, all of it. If you come to one retreat, it will supplement the work because you will be in practice. So it is, I guess the closest thing to consider would be like a summer internship, right? Or something like that. I don't know. I never went to vacation Bible school, but maybe it's that. I'm not sure. But there's like this idea that there's this stuff that you're learning, and then where do you go practice, right? I can talk to you about a standing G-spot orgasm, but where do you go to experience that at? Do you know a location other than mine? Maybe Jack's, one of Jack's parties. But outside of that, like there's not a lot of places to experience what we're teaching. And so you'll be practicing in relationship, maybe with a partner who hasn't taken my class. So you're now teaching them what I taught you. And there's not, it's just different. And so all of my retreats are designed so that we have space to practice, whether you're a student in this class, a client of mine, a client of one of my graduates, that there's still, no matter what, it's all make believe until you practice it. Like it's all fun and games. So you get punched in the mouth, right? Mike Tyson said that. Like that's the same concept. Like until you actually go out and get in the ring, then yeah, you learn, you hit a bag. Right? You hit a bag a few times, you did some shadow boxing, but where was the actual practice? How do you know what it feels like to feel that punch reverberate into your body and to feel that shock into, like, all of that is the same here. Like, what does this all mean without actually having your body fully present and in the experience? And so the retreats are designed to give you that space. I recommend coming to all of them. Now, I don't know, where the sugar daddies, sugar mommies, sugar zaddies, sugar zams are at that's going to let you afford to come to all of them. But that is the real, like they're good. They're good for you. They're good for me. They are an opportunity to be in community together, to have a partner that we can practice with, that understands consent, that values our safety, that hears our voice, and that gives us time to find our no's and our yeses. Like that's magic, And so, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but I hope so. Any other questions that were in here? I think that's it. Okay, cool. I just spent a few more minutes going over like what it looks like. So level 1, we cover a variety of topics, and you can see those topics in the slider when you go to, it's /level 1 /level 2 for the first 2 levels. When you go to those, you'll see the sliders and what the lessons are. And they're constantly expanding and constantly evolving. And so, and that's true, Jazz. Yeah, when you do the work, the zaddies do be showing up, don't they? But anyway, it's really important to understand and have an idea, like this is so much more than touch. Level 1 is so much more than touch. It's about, like, can you even be touched, right? Do you know what happens when you are touched? Are you aware of how your body is reacting to touch, how it's responding to touch? That is this type of stuff that we're covering in these courses. That's important. So I think it's important for you to know that it's bigger than it's not just touch. Touch is an element of it, but a lot of it is getting you ready to be touched. And a lot of people are like, no, I'm ready to be touched. And then they get to the space where it's time to be touched, and they're doing something else, or they're thinking about something else. They've left their body. or they're trying to make an action have to happen for them to be able to receive the touch, to have permission to receive the touch. And so it's a lot of getting ready to be able to receive touch, which is self-work for us as practitioners, to us to understand what that process is like for us, because we all have some level of readiness that we have to move through. And then the next level after we get through that is like really educating about like, okay, so now that we've done this, now that we've come to this basic threshold, or I know how to communicate around touch, how to receive touch that I desire, what's next, right? And so when you look at the curriculum for the sex doula, we're really moving through the next part, right? What are some of the practices? What are some of the things that we can be doing? What does this lube do? What is this toy for? What are some toys I could use? What are some other ways I could use toys that don't involve my genitals? What does sex look like if I take the genitals out of it? All of these things are ways in which we get to know our body and our sexual capacity in level 2. And then level 3 is really designed much more as a mentorship with some training and education, obviously. The intensive is back for the level 3. I know I said I was doing my last level 3 intensive the last time I had a level 3 intensive, where I was like, fuck this, I'm never doing a level 3 intensive again. It's too intense. And I just needed a break. It's back. It's in January. But it still offers you this piece of, because it's a lot of information in 10 days. And level 3 is probably the most tears that we have in any retreat over the course of 10 days. And so yeah, there's that exists, which is also works as an opportunity for you to be in mentorship with me as you complete that as well. Jazz, turn your camera back off. And there's other training. So I want to say, yeah, that like if this all seems like a lot, like this is a lot, because it's a lot. You can slow down the lotness of it all. You can stop it whenever you want and get off the ride, but it is a lot. And so maybe you want to start somewhere a little more simple, or a little less intense. And I don't know if that's really what I would use to describe, but we have like the cuddle size training, which is to become a certified cuddler, which I believe cuddling is also sex work, because I believe cuddles are sex. I don't just have sex with my genitals. That's why. Other people have different opinions on it, but for me, that's me. I also want to create space for folks that do not use their genitals to be able to experience sex. And so it's really important for me to have that reframe around what sex is versus what sexual intercourse is. So there's that's an online training program that you can do. So it was originally set up as 4 weeks. There's videos, all of that you do at your own pace. You can kind of familiarize yourself with work. It is trauma informed, and it is somatically centered. So you can learn a lot about the body and about practices. There's some great books to read in that. I also have my Breathe into Bliss training, which is a day-long certification. I actually leave in a couple of days to go teach in Chicago. And then I'm in DC on a week from today on Monday. So those are available also. If you're looking for something that's maybe a little more, I don't know, like not as intense, like you don't have to dedicate a whole year of your life, but you want to get your toes wet. Those are some options for you. I'll be presenting at Sex Down South if you just want to like, let me just get more familiar. Like, well, I listen, the Aquarius way is to dive in feet first, not even head first, feet first, sink all the way to the bottom. But I realize that's just me and my way. You don't have to move in that way. So I want you to really let this settle in, let this sit with the body and feel into it, and to encourage you as the Aquarius. What I will do is I will send an email to you after this is complete with a special offer for you. And just in case you're like, maybe, but I need a little nudge. You do that with what you want, but I will make that available to you. So you'll see an email shortly. With your way in. Yeah. Some of us we're jump right inners and we get shit done. what are we gonna say? It's getting dark out here. I'm gonna turn on the lights. But yeah, that's the reality. And so I say that's all that's available to you, right? Like that's open. It's an option. And listen to your body, sit with it, ask some friends, DM some of the people that are here. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and ask, just for those of you who have completed level 1 and or 2 and 3, to share your social media handles in the chat so that if people have questions, they can follow you and ask you those questions without me being present. Maybe I want to talk some dirt and I don't want it to be there. I don't know. But if you can, just for those of you that have completed the program already, to go ahead and share your social media, wherever you prefer DMs to come in the chat so that they can follow you and ask you questions about your work or about your studies that they may not feel comfortable asking here, or that may come up later. That I think will be really helpful for you all as well. So yeah, I'm on Spill now too. We'll find each other. I don't know how to make it work. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like a real old lady on Spill, but yeah.
Oh, you changed your mind so fast.
I know. I had all the hoes in my inbox, like, you gotta go to Spill. It's for sex workers and it's queer. I was like, fine. So I'm on Spill now. Bishop has completed level 1 and level 2. Jax has completed level 1, 2, and 3. Robin has completed 1, 2, and 3. Angelique and John completed level 1. Mackenzie 1 and 2. I don't know if I'm missing somebody. Nick level 1, erotic embodiment. Oh, Tanya Keith, yeah. I forgot that she's sitting over there with you. Oh, Jamila's here. Hey, Jamila. Whitney's kind of completed level 1. So there was the question about like, if you don't complete the program in a year, what does that look like? And it looks like starting over from the beginning. And the reason why is because every year, I am literally in this year, I don't know, maybe 7 courses that I have to take this year that are advancing the training. And so it changes so much and so dramatically year after year. And so you would be starting over. We can talk about what that looks like for you as far as where you are at. But I think, Whitney, when you were in, the classes totally restructured, completely different. And that is often the case by the time you get to a year out, that level 1 is over. I'm gonna turn on the light because I have a couple really important things that brings up, but it's getting dark and I'm starting to just see my teeth. Hold on one second. And we're back. The other thing I want to add is that because there's this evolution that once you complete the program, you can return to level 1 as much as you want. So I have people that have completed the program once 7 years ago, and they are still doing it again. They'll come back, and yeah, they do. That because the information is constantly growing and evolving. I am a lifelong student. In fact, when I was a young kid, that's what I said I wanted to be when I grew up. And here I am on accident, kind of, but also manifested that. So, so there is this reality of like, you don't have to worry about like, well, there's new information. What happens to me? You just move back through the cycle again. You pop in, you'll have access to the course. As long as you've completed level 1, you'll have access to level 1. As long as I'm around and putting it out there, and hopefully after I go on and the other students are still are teaching. So that will always be the case. Same for level 2 and level 3. You'll have access to information. You'll have access to community. We have a chat that's just people who have completed or who are moving through and or completed a course. Each class has its own chat, but we have one that's just all of us who have completed the training at any level. We're all in there. It's a sexology chat. It's a good place to share ideas, to ask questions, to test your website, to test your offers, things like that. So we really have a productive professional community supporting you throughout this process as well. That's really important to understand. All right, that's our time, folks. Any last minute questions? Oh, I did have a question, Nakia says. Go ahead, Nakia. What's your question? Where you go? Did you ask it already? You gonna type it in the chat? Or did you leave? I think we might have lost Nakia. Oh no, there you are, Nakia. I don't know if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You might have to type it in the chat. Okay, you're here. You have a question. Go ahead and ask your question. This will be our last question for the night. The suspense. Oh, about payment. Yeah, we have payment plans. Yeah. So there's weekly, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly payment plans, or you can pay all at once. And that's all on the website. Yeah. So if you go to atltantra.org/sexology, it'll walk you through a little more about what I just talked about. And then when you click on level 1, it'll show you what the payment plan options are. And you can start that right away. You don't have to wait for any special invitation. You will receive emails from me once you get in the course, but you can start that right away and actually get started on your coursework. You can order the books in advance. The books are listed on the website. So you can order the books and start reading the books and then jump in when you're ready. All of that is an option. Yeah. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, that's time. So who am I taking level 1 with? We got a good crowd for you right now that's in there. We got a lot of East Coasters. So it's a good time to jump in, T, because there's a lot of East Coasters that are in. So we have study groups out of New York and somewhere else up on that seaboard. My geography is all jacked up when it comes over there. I know where Philadelphia is. I know where New York City is. And then, yeah, Jax is always in level 1, even when she's not. So is Mackenzie. And so you got some familiar faces in there. And then Philly is really all that matters, ain't it? Yeah. I can't either. Let's get there. Let's do that now. So cool. Thank you all for spending this afternoon with me, for spending this evening with me, moving through this. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If you want, you can ask it directly on Instagram beneath the post that's about this open house, so that others may see your question and your answer. If you're a little shy to ask, you can send it in the email or in the DMs, and I'll get to you eventually. Although I do have a slow response on email, I'm not gonna lie. It's so many other things in there asking for my attention. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll get back to you. So we'll see. Again, there's also support here. There's all these graduates around that you can also ask. So if there's questions that come up, just let us know. Reach out and we'll see what happens from there. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out. And I look forward to seeing you on this journey. We need you in this work. I don't think I said that, but that is the other part that's really important for you to understand, is that this work needs you. It needs us to be in it. It cannot not also include us. So please keep that in mind as you think about what you're looking for. All right, y'all. Peace. Have a beautiful night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.